Moving now to the board decision on child care center parking. This is something we've talked about a lot in different aspects of a child care initiative here in Arlington, but what specifically was decided at this meeting?
So I would say the important umbrella, or what all of these code changes we've adopted on childcare have in common, is that we are trying to increase the supply of quality childcare by knocking down some of those barriers that are not core to that mission of providing quality environments for our youngest Arlingtonians. And parking is a great example of that. So this has been an ongoing effort, and I'm sure it's been discussed in County Board Wrap-Up before, even the area of parking. How do you reduce the number of parking spaces so that we have, to use a sort of buzzwordy term, right-size the parking? We're not requiring those child care centers to provide more parking than they really need. And that's important because parking is expensive. It can limit the number of places that a child care center can open, or in some cases, we have required child care centers to rent off-site parking. And if you are a really low-margin business, which childcare is, having that additional demand on your balance sheet can really make or break your future or your ability to take on more kids. So this was kind of an additional add-on step when we acted back in April, I think it was. Or excuse me, it might have actually been our March meeting to adopt a bunch of zoning ordinance reforms as well as childcare ordinance reforms to pursue that goal that I was describing. Our Planning Commission, actually, and our Transportation Commission gave us the recommendation, can you push this a little further? Are we being overly cautious about how much parking we're requiring? And again, recognizing the expense and opportunity cost of that parking, it seemed worth it to really home in and make sure that we were looking at this as efficaciously as we could. So our staff, who have been indefatigable on this, took a new look at or fresher look at the childcare ratios and proposed that they could responsibly advocate to further reduce from 1 space per 8 kids to 1 space per 10 kids, consistent with the new ratios of staff required for the kids. And we actually had a very real-life example. An item pulled from our consent agenda that we also heard on Tuesday night was a child care center saying, you know, it's a little bit of a mismatch. I'm coming in at 1 in 8, but I actually have the staffing ratio that's closer to 1 in 10. Okay. It would be really helpful for me if it was closer to 1 in 10. So it's sort of nice to be able to say, stay tuned, we're taking that action an hour later.
So this gives the child care centers, in the long run, a little more opportunity to either allow more children or...
Well, it's a lot more opportunity. You know, we talk about the ratios 1 in 8, 1 in 10, but that's a 25% reduction in their parking requirement. And, you know, as Katie said, hopefully this will allow for further resources to be invested in either quality childcare or reducing the cost of childcare. That's really what we're ultimately trying to do, while at the same time balancing making sure we're not putting a parking burden, if you will, elsewhere. So that's the sort of policy magic that we were trying to thread, and staff did a great job of recognizing that, you know, these ratios, which were in a zoning ordinance, were from another time and with other circumstances that guided their implementation. So they did updated studies. They looked at what's the behavior now of childcare centers and their parking needs and how many employees use modes other than driving alone to get to work. And we found that there was absolutely room where we could decrease that responsibility, which has real costs.
Yeah. Now, there was also a related action involving the use permits for family daycare homes, and I think there was a little back and forth that went happen there. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
We have been chatting with our staff about making sure we can communicate exactly what was done, and that it's actually about creating opportunity and reducing barriers for child care centers. I actually have a neighbor who's been operating a child care center out of her home for, I want to say, close to 3 decades now. And we got that letter, that as did a number of neighbors living near in-home daycare providers, that looked like 61 providers were being shuttered, which was deeply concerning to a lot of folks. So we were glad to have this opportunity and from the dais to clarify what that action actually does is the opposite. It's going to make them easier to get the permission, so to speak, that they need to continue operating. Our in-home daycare providers used to have to come to the county board for approval. Most of the time they ended up on the consent agenda, no problem, but what we heard from a lot of our providers is it introduces uncertainty. You might be ready to go, and then you're waiting for the next board meeting, and you don't know if that item is going to be pulled. You don't know if it's moving forward. And this is for providers who have the full sign-off from our staff, from our Office of Child Care Licensing, from Planning and Zoning, that this use is compatible with their neighborhood, that they're operating a quality environment, and they were waiting for that extra procedural step. So what this decision or this action that we took did essentially was say, you now have an administrative path. If you are consistent with the planning and zoning use for your neighborhood and the Office of Child Care Licensing says you're providing a clean and safe and quality environment, by all means go forward. You don't need to take the extra step of coming before the county's policy-making body to get formal approval. So we are seeking to clarify that to any concerned neighbors. This is actually about helping those 61 providers gain more predictability and ease for continuing to operate.
And equity. I mean, you can
Yes.
operate any of a number of home businesses without the county government, the board level, getting involved. Then why in the world should childcare be any different? Let's let the professionals in the child care licensing office determine whether or not you're suitable and fit. And let's not politicize something that, one, puts you at a different level than other home-based businesses. And, we're talking about providing care for children. And, it was just something that was unreconcilable, at least for us.
And just while we're on the topic, what are the next steps for the child care initiative? Because there's many different levels of many different factions of it.
Yeah, we got some long-term
We do.
actions coming in,
We were
right?
just meeting as the Child Care Initiative Leadership Roundtable a couple weeks ago to talk about exactly that. One of the big things, of course, is monitoring how all of these implemented policy changes are working, whether they're working as achieved. One of the biggest things that we're focused on, have been focused on since the start, and will continue to focus on, is really that equity piece for our lowest income families and for our children with special needs, whether they may be developmental delays or something else. What does their access look like? That's been the area of greatest concern, and so we're looking at, for example, is there an opportunity to expand or to better market the subsidies? One of our biggest challenges is that we do have subsidies to support families. A lot of child care providers don't take them. They sort of, generally the most common answer we get is that we've got wait lists out the wazoo already, so to participate in that extra step for subsidies isn't necessary. So can we make the regulatory burden for subsidy participation on the part of the provider lower? Or is it there a path to just create more spots so that the opportunity, the demand is meeting, or the supply is meeting demand better? One of the other things we've been talking about too, and this really is interrelated with equity, is childcare during non-traditional times. Our model is very much based around that kind of 9 to 5 supporting parents who have traditional professional jobs. We know a lot of folks in our community are working shifts or sometimes need drop-in childcare so they can further their education or go on a job interview. And so that's a big area of study for us next too.